Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Great day, isn't it?
Yeah.
My name is Maria Howard, which you already know, and I'm with First American Natural Hazard Disclosure and JCPLGS reports. Know this, we have two brands, one with the eagle and one without the eagle, but we soar just the same. So, just want to kind of give you some bullet points on the overall about how NHD came into place. June the 1st of 1996 is when they launched the natural hazard disclosures. California law establishes the legal obligation of a real estate licensee to disclose material facts. Material facts can be any information that could affect the buyer's decision in a transaction. Natural hazard information is considered material fact to a transaction. There are 6 minimum disclosure requirements for the state of California. The first one is the 100-year flood zone, which includes the areas A and B. Those are the flood zones that your homeowner will be required to get additional flood coverage. When a structure is butt up against a parcel where it's flood and the actual structure doesn't sit on it, there's also, we can give is a flood certification would omit from a buyer having to get additional flood insurance. You can talk to me about that in an individual. The other one is the dam failure, inundation areas, the very high fire hazard severity zones, the state responsibility areas, which is now the new tax law regarding the state fires on the rural communities which don't have their own fire department, the earthquake fault lines, and of course, the seismic zones. So those are the 6 minimum requirements in a hazard disclosure report. The other safety local elements are the ones from the county. The one of them is methane, dam failure, debris flow, fault, fire hazard zones, landslide potential, liquefaction, hillside, and the tsunami. How many know what liquefaction is? Okay, it's kind of a soft soil that's a little slushy and considered like the little ant farm where there are little holes in the pocket and then you shake it up and that collapses. Well, that's what happens to some of these areas. Some of your areas do have this. I know for a fact Arcadia is one of them. North of Live Oak is considered liquefaction. So when you're working with your areas, be sure to be well aware of what is in your surrounding communities, both on a state and county and local level. This year, CAR spearheaded in changing some of your forms, which some of you already know, correct? The state buyer and seller advisory, as well as your SPQ form, which is your seller property questionnaire, have changed. The SBSA, it has a new paragraph in it that has added the underground pipeline disclosure. Yeah, the gas line. The SPQ, which is the seller property questionnaire, the letter K, is now incorporating neighborhood nuisance and of course the pipeline disclosure. And some of your areas have these, believe it or not. You don't think there is, but there is. This year, another law that came into effect was the AB 1511. That is the new pipeline. It is now going to be taking effect January 1st of 2013. July 1st of 2013, it will now be on your RPA contract, where it will be on there for you to answer. There is also now a website which is called the National Parcel Mapping System, where a buyer will be able to go on our advisory report, like the Megan's Law. There will be a website where they can actually put in their address and know whether we're near a 2,000 feet transmission pipeline. Another law that came into effect this year of January was the active mines. Those are the active mines, not considered gold mining or for diamonds. It's actual gravel where they're, for streets and pavement. So believe it or not, there are 49 in the county of LA. we have presently about 14 to 16, which is by the Irwindale area. There's actually an active mine in Compton. There's an active mine in La Crescenta, Flint Ridge, up there where I live in the hills. And there's another active mine in Claremont. These active mines became now in a disclosure on your report because what happened is that homeowners were complaining that this stuff that goes into the air was causing these respiratory disorders in their families, so they were going after the companies to sue them for that kind of hazard to their health. So now it's a disclosure within a 1 mile radius of an active mine. So nobody can come back after anybody and sue anybody because they are well aware that they are within a 1 mile proximity. The other thing is the state responsibility fee that has changed this year. That is $150 habitable structure. It has now been done by the State Board of Equalization. It's considered a tax bill. It will be given to a homeowner that is within these areas. And what happens is that if they're within the city boundaries, they will get a deduction of $35. These bills are actually going out already. August 20th will be the bill coming out to LA County. So when your homeowner gets a bill, and I printed one, I wish I could have put it on the slide, but it looks like this. This is not something that's disclosed on a preliminary title report. This is something that they'll tax you just like a tax bill, but it'll come out at the same time as a fiscal year like your property taxes, where it'll go from July 2012 to 2013. So those are the things that have transpired this year. When you are looking to select an NHD company, and John can attest to this, know who you're picking. Know that the information that is given to you that is accurate, the maps are updated, the database taxes are updated. These are all important things for you to be aware of. What I try to encourage everybody is to order it at the time of listing, and I'll tell you why. Because at the time of listing, you have the opportunity to do your due diligence as a realtor, to peruse that report thoroughly for your client, so that when you get a purchase contract offer on your transaction, you are aware of all the possible hiccups that could cause snares in your transaction. And that's one of the responsibilities as an agent, is to be prepared. Prevention is an ounce of medicine, I feel. So, with that being said, I'm going to let John speak on the advisories. I just wanted to touch on just the overall overview of what are the changes that have taken place for this year. So again, I thank you for the time for coming to speak with you, and you can always reach me. I have business cards out there, and if you have special needs, special areas, and maps, you can always address me on that on a personal level. And thank you for your time.
Our second speaker, he's always here every week, so we want to give him a hand of welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see all your bright and shiny faces. I've been in the business, a little background, I've been in the business for 18 years, only a short time, so I have seen many companies, and as Maria was saying, we do encourage you to order at time of listing, because avoid surprises. Surprises cause lawsuits. So if you get the information up front, look through the summary to see if there's anything in there so that you can be aware of when you get into a transaction and you find a buyer, you can put them on notice, and so that they don't come back and say, well, you didn't tell me about that. And try to get the most information possible. We call it the premium. They call it the industry standard. It does provide everything, including the pipeline disclosure, which Maria talked about, as well as underground contaminated sources, oil and gas wells. We have clandestine drug labs, and also abandoned mines, which there are many of them in LA County, and is really important to know about because some of them are uncapped, and if they're sitting on a property, they could be a dangerous element. So I want to pick up about some of the disclosures that we talked about before. As far as the ongoing mining operation, one that we do have also that's very close is in the Selmar area. You know how you go up the 5 freeway? just to the right of that water table that comes down from the aqueduct, that is a strip mining operation. Any ongoing mining operations. And I'll just let you know there's over 700 of them going on in the state today and growing. And they could be strip mining. They don't have to be digging into the mountain. All you have to do is be a strip mining operation, and they are disclosed in our reports so that you guys are protected. And it is something that the NHD companies must disclose. As far as the SRA tax, which we were telling, or fee, which we were telling, Maria told you about, it starts at $150 for habitable dwellings in the SRA areas, but it decreases for a couple reasons. Number one, the second dwelling, but also if you take a fire prevention class and get certified, that will reduce the amount of the fee that you'd have to pay per the dwelling. So that's another way. Education is very important and will also help you decrease your fees. So some of the things that requires a 1 mile, within a 1 mile designation of in or out are the commercial industrial zones, the formerly used defense sites, not the current operations, because that would be a national security problem. And the reason why these come into effect are because of lawsuits, multiple lawsuits that come into effect. One of the reasons why the formerly used defense sites came into effect was in Orange County about 15 years ago. 2 kids, there were developments, one was completed, the next one hadn't been fenced off and they were going to start it. Kids dug down about 6 inches, they found an unexploded grenade, and they got injured because of it. So that's why these things are in place. It's usually because of some kind of lawsuit that comes into effect. So you have to tell them if they're within 1 mile. The right to farm, the right to farm, also you have to tell them within 1 mile. Why did that come about? Because people were moving from the cities, excuse me, into the rural areas like Bakersfield, and not knowing, maybe they weren't there when there was fertilizing or where they were harvesting crops, so they didn't know about the noise or the smells, and so they instituted immediate legal action. Well, they wanted to avoid that. So if they're within 1 mile of a right to farm area, they will put on notice, and so that will avoid them coming back and saying, hey, we're going to sue you about that. You were put on notice. Another was the fee that I was telling you about, the state responsibility. We will tell you if you're within 1 mile of a right to farm area. 1 mile of a state fire responsibility area. So we'll let you know about that as well. Airport influence area. Everyone heard about the airport influence area? It replaced the airport proximity. What it is, it's either a set area around the airport, and on a smaller airport where it's unmapped, it's a 2 mile statutory radius around that airport. So that's how they figure that. And then the airport noise, or 65 decibel, it's not all bad. If your client wants to buy a property near an airport, they can apply for federal funding to help soundproof their homes, for money for them to soundproof the homes so they can still enjoy the property. So if they really want to live near an airport, they have to apply to the federal authority for that airport. So it's not all bad, but we'll always tell you. And if it's in the airport influence area, it's probably also in the noise decibel. Okay. Some of the other advisories, NHCs, let me just tell you real quick, are broken down into state, federal, local, city, advisories, and taxes. That's how they break it down. And the advisory section starts off with the Megan's Law. Everyone know what Megan's Law is? Do you want to look up that Megan's Law information? Why? What happens if you look it up? You've got to disclose it, it's correct. So what we do is we provide the phone numbers and a website for you to look up that information. You just provide it to them, that's all you have to do. The mold advisory, read the booklets, people. In the earthquake booklet, it has complete sections on explaining all these sections of the advisories in the report. It has additional info with them we can put in the report because it would make the reports too long. So basically, it's the same mold that grows in your shower if you don't use Tilex to clean it out. It just needs warm, wet conditions, and it emits microscopic spores that even the most healthy person would get sick. Remember Ed McMahon, about what, 4 years ago, 5 years, maybe longer now? He got sick, his dog died, they had to move into a hotel because of the situation. They settled for an undisclosed amount because he was in one of those homely hills that were built in the early 1900s. So, you know, they had leaky pipes and all that kind of stuff. So just be aware of that. Radon advisory. We actually tell you if the property is in a high, low, or moderate range. And Long Beach and along the coastal areas down that way are in a high level area. Still, all the duty is to report what level it's in, but there may be a recommendation for you to have an inspector come out and check radon, because it's an odorless, tasteless gas, and it usually was a big deal back east, but now it's reared its head here, and is now could be an issue. So just be aware of that. Methamphetamine labs, I like this one. Believe it or not, they are in some of the nicest areas. They're not just up in the hills. Methamphetamine labs, the penalty is if they don't tell you it is, and they find out that it was, closed down by the health department, cited, and had to be cleaned up. And you know, if you've ever seen them on TV, they have the hazmat gear when they come out, and they have to put on the gear because of the stuff they cut it with is very toxic. So what they do is you have to disclose, and there's a card form, if the property was cited as being a meth lab, yes or no, and if yes, put the information, but if you say no and it was found out to be, it's a $5,000 fine and up to a year in jail. It's still based on seller's knowledge, but it's usually the absentee seller who falls into problems like that. So make sure that you remind them to keep an eye on their properties if they're renting them out. Energy efficiency advisory, okay, that's in there too. If you have to repair an air conditioning or ducts, you can do so up to 15% duct blockage or leakage, but you can repair it, but if you have to replace it, it has to be 13 Sears energy efficiency guidelines. So anything that you put a new one in, it has to be 13 Sears, and if it's over 30% of the blockage of the, or leakage of the ducts, you have to replace the whole thing. So just keep aware of that. And then, question?
I said I don't want to be aware of it.
Well, unfortunately, it may come up. I'm just letting you know it's not a surprise. I want you to know about it. Not that you have to do anything, but just know about it. And then the endangered species. Okay, the way we do it is the way it should be done, because some companies put 2 of the 11 in LA County. The way it should be done, the way Maria's company and my company does it, we give a website for Northern and Southern California for the buyer to look up the information so that they can be put on notice if they're going to want to maybe add a mother-in-law's room. They'll know whether there's a red-legged tree frog or there's a tiger salamander in the, in the area, which would foreclose them from adding onto the property. Remember, there's 11 of them. So if you name 2, and you can't control endangered species by saying, no, you're not, you've got to stay in this county, you can't move to this county, because you just can't do that. And so if it does go into the other county and the contractor sees it, he's not going to be able to build. Who are you going to go back on? They're going to sue you because you provided the company to provide the reports. Okay, so that's what that's all about. What it comes down to is you want to select a company that will have your back and provide the most comprehensive and most complete information, which understandable for the buyers, and that you have a support staff to answer any questions that are detailed in regard to information that they don't understand in the reports, and that's what it comes down to. We happen to do flood certs as well, but we also do land survey. So sometimes when you're dealing with properties that are vacant, because you have to have it on vacant land too, you may need a land survey. You may need a phase 1 or phase 2. We can do that too. The other thing is that a breakdown is What's the difference between disclosures and advisories? Disclosures are property specific. Advisories are territory or locality specific. So they're they're just to put them on notice. They're not actually to disclose that it's in or out for that particular property. You want to deal with a company that has at least $10 million of E&O insurance to protect you, which both of our companies do. And you want to deal with a company that has a representative that can be available to answer any questions or assist you with anything that you may have questions on or your client has question on. And that's what we're here for. We want to make sure that you get it complete, accurate, and quickly. Real quickly into the taxes, because that's another part of it. Does everyone know what Melrose is? Melrose tax? How about 1950 bond? Okay, I'm going to wrap it real quick. All right, basically they're both taxes that must be disclosed in the tax report from the seller to the buyer. The Melrose must be provided in the name of the taxing facility, purpose of the tax, the period of tax, when it runs from to, amount of the tax, amount of the maximum tax, and the escalator. That's in our report. But for 1950, it's the same thing, but there is no maximum tax, there is no escalator. Okay? And there's a private transfer fee on new properties as well. And thank you very much.
Thank you.